quick cage match and then get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's cage match and then hightail it out of here.
All right. So for none of those of you who haven't seen a cage match, Lacey and I have not seen this at all. It's a Dave Ramsey episode, and the question is, can we still afford to buy a house? Now, we're going to watch it. Lacey's going to guess what their predictions are, and we're going to try and see if I can out-financial plan them.
All right. I'm going to look into my crystal ball, and then you're going to see if you can...
I'm going to look into my financial calculator.
Right, my crystal ball and your financial calculator. Here we go.
Let's go to Alyssa now in Sacramento, California. Alyssa, how can we help?
Hi there. My name is Alyssa. Thanks for having me on the show. Just wanted to ask you a question.
Hang on. She is. How quick is? I had it going fast. All right, we're going to slow her down. All right.
My husband and I, we just found out that we're 8 weeks pregnant with our first child.
Yay!
Yes, unexpected, but it's a joyful blessing. I wanted to see if our goal is to purchase a house. Wanted to see if we could still do that while preparing for a baby financially, as well as living on one income, potentially.
Okay, so where are you guys at financially? Do you have any debt?
No debt.
Do you have an emergency fund?
We have 6 months saved.
Awesome.
Yeah,
what about down payment?
Down payment, I have $500.
$500?
So basically, we put it $500 because we put it on hold while my husband finishes student teaching, where he's teaching full-time for free to get his credential, which he should have at the end of June.
Okay. So what is the goal for down payment and house purchase?
So our goal was to because we think that we could do fine.
You have any thoughts so far, Lace?
Well, I guess we need to hear more of what she says their financial goal is, but I'm thinking that they are going to say, no, you cannot buy a house yet, generally speaking, because she doesn't have enough for the down payment. They're not going to recommend that she goes into the 6-month emergency savings and depletes that in order to buy a house, in order to end up in a situation where they need their emergency savings and don't have it.
Right.
So unless she pops out with some sort of information that's saying, but we can save at a rate of blah, blah, so before the baby's here, we could do it. Unless she pops out with that sort of data, they're probably going to say to keep renting for a while. And also, they do tend to tell people when they're having babies to stack up their savings as high as they can, hoping they don't need it, but in case there's any complications when it comes to, having the baby, if there's any medical complications or whatever, that they have like a bigger stack of cash.
Mm. And
then after it is certain that mother and child are fine, to, put those funds to another purpose. So I think for the 2 reasons, they're going to say, wait.
Yeah, I'd probably say wait too. We really need to know how much she makes, how much the husband is potentially going to make. Because the question is can they pay the mortgage? Right. The down payments is a different kind of issue, but the question is, can they pay the mortgage and how much can they afford? So that's
right. What's the situation compared to what the mortgage situation would be? And we always know that there are, question marks in terms of when you own a place, random repairs and things that pop up. So
but I need to know, we need to do some income stuff first. So before we get into any really discussion.
It was a 3-month emergency fund because we never use it. We plan to build it 6 months, which we did. Then basically get through this period without using our emergency fund, which we've done by living frugally, and then take 3 months of our emergency fund and make it actually into a down payment fund. Add it to the down payment fund and just have a 3-month emergency fund. And then that would give us $8,000.
Now, you're in California. I assume this house is going to be very expensive.
So if we had, I don't know if you guys, I hear sometimes you guys allow people to do like 5 to 10% down on their first house. So $20,000 would be 5% down. And so if I'm doing like side jobs.
Whoa. Yeah, that's already a problem right there. Because 20% of $20,000 being she's talking about buying a $400,000 house. And her husband's going to be a teacher?
Yeah.
What is that starting in California? It can't be more than like 60 or 70 starting in California.
It would depend on, whether he has only a bachelor's or if it's a master's degree level as well.
But 400,000, I mean, that's an expensive house. I mean,
so, but I also want to know that we don't know. She said their one income, and she said that he's doing his student teaching for free. So we wonder if she is working and he is the one who she is not counting as working because it's for free. Or is he the one who's the working person and she is not? I'm a little confused about that part of their story.
Still, I'm looking at it right now. So $400,000 house on a 30-year mortgage. And we figured out, we actually mentioned that earlier, 7% is the average rate right now. They're paying $2,700 a month in mortgage. And that's not including HOA or utilities. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money. He's got to be bringing home like $5,000 or $6,000 a month to cover that. Or they do together. So let's see where it goes.
What's your household income with that one income?
Oh, there we go. That's a question.
With the one income, it's probably going to be $55,000 a year.
This is a nightmare.
Yeah,
looking
not
for
gonna
a place to happen.
Okay.
How much is this mortgage going to be?
Well, we were thinking of getting a duplex where we could. That was our goal before the baby.
No,
so,
you're going to be a landlord with a newborn, with your neighbor next door knocking when the HVAC goes out.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to justify the home purchase in California, and the numbers just don't make sense. So here's what I'll tell you. I would focus on continuing to save the down payment. Let's have the baby. Let's see where we're at financially.
Yeah, you called it. So,
in this respect, though, honestly, I might have slightly different reasons for the judgment call, but I'm going to agree with their judgment call that they shouldn't do it.
Well, I have very different reasons, but yeah, we'll go into it. I mean, basically, they can't afford it. That's true, but
super simply, they can't afford it. Yeah, that's on the monthly basis or the down payment basis, any of the basis, they can't afford it.
Mm-mm.
It's also, now I'm looking at this from like not partially a financial point of view, but partially just like a balance of life issue, because our money is about our lives. That's trying to sign up to have a whole lot going on at the same time that maybe doesn't really need to be going on at the same time. Like, I think they're looking at it slightly through a different lens than me, but I would say I agree for sort of different reasons. But do you really want to be having your first baby, moving into your first home, becoming a landlord for the first time, while your husband is getting his first teaching job?
Right.
That's just like a recipe for relationship issues, mental health, emotional issues. Like, that's signing up for a lot of stuff to be trying to happen at the same time, and I don't think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. The other thing I would say too is he should really work for a year before you get a house, because they're going to want to see 1 to 2 years of steady employment, and that's going to affect what the interest rate is going to be on the mortgage.
Okay. Not all. I don't want to get really negative on this, but not all teachers that get right out of the gate stay in the profession. Some of them do 1 to 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, I can't do all this.
Yeah.
So it would be a better situation if, like, I don't know how long in the school district he'll be looking at it takes him to get tenure, but 2-3 years, either like, hey, this is my tenure year, or I just got tenure, is going to look better to any potential lenders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they could get a decent 2-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom apartment, at least for the first year, then you'd probably want to move to a 2-bedroom apartment by the time the kid's, 1.5 or 2, and they're out of a crib. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I mean, it's probably better to keep yourself flexible for the first couple, 2-3 years before you tie yourselves into a house.
And he's starting a new profession. what if it turns out the school district they buy in is one that he is miserable teaching in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like, there's all of that sort of thing too. What if it's not just an individual school issue, but it's like this district, but if we, if I went to this district over here,
right,
and that stuff, looking at it from the parent where I'm sticking my child in perspective is one thing, but from the perspective of a teacher who's going to be teaching there, you might not really be looking at it quite the same way, and you might not really be able to understand until you've been in for a little bit whether that's a school district that is going to be a good match for you or not. And if you've gone literally buying your house somewhere, you're either setting yourself up for like staying in a district that maybe you don't want, or like having a worse commute.
Right.
All reasons to wait a little bit.
Right. The thing I would do is this: is when you're shopping for a home, right? If that's what you want to do, and there's nothing wrong with looking. When you go on like Zillow or whatever, because this is what I would do. They usually have what is the monthly mortgage estimate, and they'll do it the same way I would do it as a finance person. It's the same. All real estate finance people do the same things. So what I would do is sit there and go, okay, well, if let's say you can afford, in her case, maybe they could probably afford, because I was looking at it, if he's making $65,000, they've got about $4,300 a month, probably anywhere between $16,000 to $2,000 they could probably afford, $1,600 to $2,000. Anything beyond that I think would be unreasonable, but let's do $1,800. We'll just call the difference, and then I would just factor, okay, so you're paying $21,000 a year. And we'll do 7% interest for the 30 years. What kind of house could they afford? They could afford probably something around $270,000. So that might be like, okay, could you find a decent 2-bedroom apartment that you guys could buy for $270,000 without a huge HOA, because you got to factor that in. And then you'd be in a position, okay, then yeah, you'd be doing $1,800 a month on that. Plus, you'd have the place to be growing in value over the next few years. And then you could use it as a starter home, and then you sell that and roll it into a bigger place in 4 or 5 years when you're ready. Any more stable. That's another option. I don't know that I would say jump into that right away, but maybe like in a year, think about something like that, because that's more realistic.
I think in a year or two, that's a more realistic way to stair step themselves in.
Yeah, but I also think that that's the other issue they didn't really talk about, which is she's thinking about the house she wants, not the house she can afford. So she should have done it backwards. She should have gone first, what can we afford? Then start looking at houses that fall into that category, as opposed to, I want the $400,000 house, but I'm not thinking about how we're going to pay for it. And that's where I think she kind of made the big mistake.
Right.
Because you get the house, and then 2 years from now, you can't afford it, and you're underwater, and you have to sell it anyway. Then it costs you more than you put in, right? So I think that's the better sort of strategy to talk about with them. But yeah, I mean, I guess we're all kind of in agreement they shouldn't do it, but I would think it would be nicer for them to give them better options.
Right. I'm going to put this in the win column for both of us. I nailed what their advice was, and while I'm not going to give them a total loss because I feel like they steered them correctly, I feel like you have presented them with what options might look like, which is the more empowering situation. Just being shot down isn't that pleasant if it's something you want. And also, if you're just shot down and not given what your options are, you might just get a little bullheaded and go out and do it anyway and do something kind of dumb. So you probably need to figure out what your real options are, so you feel like you know what you're actually evaluating,
Absolutely. But yeah, they need to figure out, I would say you need to figure out your budget first and be a little stable. I would wait at least till the end of the year before we actually started talking about it. Give him a chance to get a job and get set up and get stable, and you to have the kid. And once all that's going through,
like what the teaching paychecks look like, and how our monthly expenses in general have changed with the child here. And I mean, granted, the main one should be the same, but some things will change a little, and you want to know what that looks like too before you add a bunch of other changes.
Absolutely. Plus, the other thing too with the emergency fund deal, the only thing I would add to that is, especially if I'm talking to somebody with a teacher or somebody who has like a physical job, where they have to be, especially people that have to be around a lot of other people now in the modern era of COVID. The one thing I always want to talk about is we need to talk about disability insurance. I know nobody wants to and everybody thinks it sucks, but you are almost certainly going to use it over the next 20 years. Very few people get away working for 20 or 30 years without having to go take 3 to 6 months off because they're ill or injured or something. Life is not that convenient.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't care how many carrots you eat or how many sit-ups you do. Especially if you're a teacher. There's going to be that one snot-nosed little brat who coughs on you, and the next thing you know, you're on a respirator for fucking 4 weeks. So.
Well, on that note, I'm excited to go to work tomorrow.
All right, fun. So Lacey's going to go. She's going to wear her hazmat suit.
I do still wear my mask in my classroom. I'm just putting it out there. Most people have abandoned theirs, but mine is on in my classroom because there's a lot of people in my classroom.
Yeah. Yep. You never know where those little snot lockers have been.
Well, I don't teach the little ones, but
no, I know.
Let's people.
Yeah, I think I got a little bit of a cold. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
All right.